Variables are placeholders for storing dynamically or programmatically supplied user values. Hi, I'm Seema from AutomationEdge Professional Services. In this video, I will compare user-defined variables versus Process Studio or PS variables. Process Studio has 4 ways to capture dynamic user inputs. Internal variables. Internal variables are available internally in Process Studio by default. Parameters. Parameters are defined in the workflow properties to capture workflow inputs in runtime or design time parameters. User-defined variables are defined in the set variables Process Studio step. PS variables or Process Studio variables are defined in the set PS variables Process Studio step. In this video, we will compare user-defined variables versus Process Studio variables against several attributes. Let's begin. To which Process Studio plugin do the steps related to variables or PS variables belong? The steps related to variables are in the Process plugin, whereas the steps related to PS variables are in the AutomationEdge core plugin. Let us check it in Process Studio. In the left navigation, you can see that the get variables and set variables steps are in the Process plugin, whereas the get PS variables and set PS variables steps are in the AutomationEdge core plugin. Where to define the variables? Define the user-defined variables in the set variables step or modified JavaScript step, and define the PS variables in the set PS variable step or modified JavaScript step or in the workflow properties for the workflow. Let us check them out in Process Studio. I'm in Process Studio. On the canvas, you can see several steps. In an earlier video on set variables, we saw how to define custom variables in the set variables step, and in an earlier video on set PS variables, we saw how to define PS variables in the set PS variable step. You can also define variables and PS variables in the modified JavaScript step. Under special functions, you can see the functions to define custom variables or PS variables. Let us cancel for now. We also saw in the earlier video for set PS variables that you can define PS variables in the workflow properties on the third tab. Let us cancel. What is the scope of the variables? For user-defined variables, you can set the scope as Java Virtual Machine or JVM that the Process Studio is running in, the root process or workflow, including all the child processes or workflows, the grandparent process or workflow, including all the child processes and workflows, and the parent process or workflow, including all the child processes and workflows. For Process Studio variables, define the scope as local, so that the variable is valid in the local workflow, or global, so that the variable is valid in all the child workflows or processes. All the variables are available throughout the parent or root process's lifecycle as per the specified scope. Let us have a look at the scope in Process Studio. I am in Process Studio. In the set variables step, you can see the scope options as just discussed. Let us cancel it. Similarly, in the set PS variable step, you can see that the scope includes local and global values. How can you refer the variables? For user-defined variables, you can call them in any field by using the metadata string containing the variable name in braces and appended with a $sign at the beginning, or the variable name with double percentage sigils. You can refer to Process Studio variables using the metadata string containing the scope.variable name in braces and appended with a $sign at the beginning. Specify the scope as global or local. You can get the user-defined variables by clicking the Get Variables button in the Get Variables step. It lists all the variables including PS variables. Click the Get PS Variables button in the Get PS Variables step to list only PS variables. Use Ctrl plus space in any field having the $sign at the end to list all variables including the user-defined variables in the set variable step. Use Ctrl plus space in any field with a $symbol at the end to list all variables including the PS variables defined in the workflow properties. Note that PS variables defined in the set variable step is not visible in this list. To see this practically, please refer to the videos for the Get Variable step or the Get PS Variable step. Where can you use the variables? For user-defined variables, you can use the variables as per the scope defined. Same with PS variables, you can use the PS variables as per the scope defined. You can refer to the user-defined variables in the get variable step. You can refer the PS variables in the get PS variable step. You can refer user-defined variables and PS variables in the modified JavaScript step and in other steps. Let us have a look in Process Studio. I am in Process Studio. We have seen in the earlier videos that we can use the variable defined in the set variable step in the get variables using the metadata string, although not in the same workflow where it was defined. Similarly, we can use the PS variables defined in the set PS variable step, including the variable defined in the same workflow. We can also use custom or PS variables in the modified JavaScript step. Under special functions, we have the functions to get custom variables or PS variables. Let us cancel for now. We also saw in the earlier videos how we can use custom or PS variables in other steps. You can use the variables in any step in the fields having a $sign at the end. You can directly type the metadata string for the variables, or you can use the control plus space to list custom variables or PS variables defined in the workflow properties. Let us cancel. Let us have a look at the PS variables comparative advantages. User-defined variables are defined in the set variable step, whereas PS variables offer more flexibility to define in the set PS variable step or in the workflow properties. User-defined variables have several options for scope, as discussed in an earlier slide. PS variables are simple in terms of scope, as you can specify only local or global scope. Variables defined in the set variable step cannot be used in the same workflow. However, variables defined in the set PS variable step can be used in the same workflow. Let us recap. We saw the user-defined variables versus the Process Studio or PS variables across a set of attributes. And we also saw some of the advantages that the PS variables offer. You can jumpstart your digital transformation journey with AutomationEdge. AutomationEdge has numerous predefined plugin actions to quickly build workflows to automate your business processes.